Hello there, everyone. We are back. We are back to another volume of Let's Talk Funeral Service. This happens to be our first recording of the new year, and we're very happy to be back. We are very happy also to have guests with us on tonight. So, by the time that you see this video, we hope that you can be enriched. We hope that you can learn something new in this area that these ladies are going to discuss with me. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Star Ellis. I am a licensed funeral and pressed it upon myself to continue our endeavor here at Let's Talk Funeral Service, uh, which is hosted by the Funeral Service Professionals United. And I like to thank them for the opportunity again. So before we dive in, uh, let me introduce you to our special guest today. We have Miss Linda McDowell. She'll tell you about herself and where she's from and what she does. And we also have Miss Kimberly. She will also share with you where she's from, what she does in the industry. We're going to talk today the topic of death doulas, life doula, which is proper terminology. Is there one?
It's a lot of personal preference.
Mhm.
I prefer to be referred to as an end of life doula, but a lot of times there are death coaches, death doulas, soul midwife, transition guides. It's all what you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Yeah, and I prefer in the life doula too, but
Okay.
uh, all of those terms of different people have different things, but they all mean that we care for people at the end of
End
life.
of life.
Yes. Okay. And I thought maybe that did sound a little better because for some reason, which is understandable within the public, the word death itself can be
Hmm.
something that people fear. And that's another goal that I personally have. We'd like to educate the community a little further when it comes to not being so fearful when it comes to this inevitable thing that we all must encounter. So, without
Hmm.
any further ado, ladies, let's dive on in. Whomever would like to go first, could you tell us about yourself and what you do, where you're located, please?
Dal, I'm located in the Nashville area. I am a hospice nurse and
Okay.
been one for 25 years, but I'm also have the business of being an end of life doula, and I've been that about 10 years. Around the community, I do what they call death cafes to kind of educate people on death, so that it's not such that subject that nobody wants to talk about. And I've pretty much been in this industry between the hospice and the end of life probably about 25 years.
Okay. 25. You don't look too much older than 25.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Miss Kimberly.
Well, my name is my name is Kimberly DeRicio, and I actually am in Oklahoma, a little tiny town called Wynnewood. I too am a registered nurse.
Okay.
I've been doing oncology case management and hospice for 32 years. So I also
Okay.
focus my death doula business pretty much on laying the foundation for people to have conversations about death and dying, laying that foundation. I also use the conversationproject.org for resources to start the conversation. Within my communities, I present a lot to churches and
Okay.
local organizations just to make everybody aware, what end of life doulas can do and to help get people to start the conversation, to reintroduce death into our lives. As not that dreaded stranger that people will have that taboo and not really want to talk openly about death and dying, but to just kind of show it as an expected companion to our life. It's part of our life cycle.
Believe it or not, shared was going to talk with some death doulas, end of life doulas. I shared this with my mother. She said, a doula, what's that? And my mom is almost double my age, so you can imagine how many people within our society are not familiar. So can you all just give us uh, an exact, crisp explanation of when a person asks, what would you tell them?
Sure, sure. So I make sure they know first off that it's a non-medical person that's trained to care for somebody in a holistic fashion, physically, emotionally, spiritually, at end of life.
Okay.
A companion to kind of guide them through that whole process.
And I would pretty much say the same thing. A
Okay.
doula, the term is a Greek term that means one who serves, or, you know, and so we're there to serve the patient or the client and the family, to educate, to support, and to be there mentally, physically, and spiritually, because I
Mhm.
have a lot of spiritual components to my practice. Um, when you're going through with somebody at the
Okay.
end of life, it's a process, and sometimes you just need someone to support you, family and patient or
Mhm.
client need somebody to guide and support you through that difficult process and time in life.
Could this correspond, if you will, to, I don't want to use the word opposite, but we know that birth and death, they both have to happen. So is it the same type of
Mhm.
process, if you will, as a birth doula? Uh, the same type of care, if you will, for when a mother gives birth, the same type of care for when that person is
Mhm.
It is pretty similar.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're dying, you're birthed into to a new existence or a new dimension in life. And so
your
supportively,
birth.
and yeah, when you die, I feel
Okay.
like that's like you're birthing into a new dimension and a
Mhm.
new uh, part of life. I feel like death is continuum of life. And so I have been a birth doula too. That is kind of how I slid into this, by the way. There are a lot of similarities, except for birth
Oh,
doula helps
okay.
people at the birth. And she
Okay.
probably does, a birth doula does do a lot of physical, mental, and emotional support at the
Mhm.
birth. But we're on the other end of the spectrum as being at the end of life for those people who need support. So I do a lot of the same support that maybe she does, but I feel like mine is more. I do use my service as a nurse, and the people that I serve as the end of life doula, I'm doing a physical, mental, spiritual, and all of that to make a holistic uh,
Mhm.
service to the people I serve. I like Kimberly
Okay.
what she says. I always like to listen to another doula.
No, I agree with you. We really focus on the holistic approach of the actual, dying event, but you can also have impact to start in the conversations early on, to help people think about how do they want to die? What do they want that to look like? It's not always just about do they
Mm-hmm.
have advanced directives or living wills? That's part of it, absolutely part of it. But, beside the paperwork and beside that, how do they want their death to look like? Who do they want present? What do they want to happen? Do they like music? Do they like, candles? Really
Yeah.
meet that person where they're at and really find out what is important to that, customer, client, patient. Really figure out what is important to them, and then you just help them carry that out.
So the care we give is very individualistic, meaning
Okay.
that
Hmm.
it's an individualized care. So we meet the needs of the client and the family. We do a lot of support with making sure all family members are on the same page, as
Okay.
well as we are trying to meet the client. This is the end of their life. So we want to do what they want to do as they progress through the dying
Right.
process.
Hmm. Absolutely.
With that being said, you mentioned, you did, Kimberly, that you would like to uh, approach this early on. Now, do you mean when is not close, if you will? Like we know that when hospice, that is close. So is that recommended to not seek out a death doula, end of life doula around that time, or should it be done when all is well? Both.
I like to think of it like this. A death doula has, I think of it as a pyramid. And often the bottom layer may be planning, whether it is meeting with somebody to discuss, talking with their family to get
Okay.
everybody on board with the same understanding of what that patient really wants. That might be like the basement layer. Helping them, giving them information for their local funeral homes. Like I've visited with my local funeral homes, and I get a packet of information. And when I meet with customers the very first time, it doesn't, you may have months, you may have weeks, you may have years. It's never too early, in my opinion, to
Okay.
plan. So I think the sooner you
Great.
can have conversations with patients, the better off it is, because you can really understand them, on a personal level. What do they really want? And then help see that through to the end,
Absolutely.
whether it's, a week, a month, days, years, who knows?
That's good information because in the funeral service industry, we typically deal with people who, are at all levels. They can
Hmm.
be wanting to arrange, pre-plan their services. They could already be on hospice when the family contacts us. They
Hmm.
could already be passed away, which of course I don't think doula service is necessary at that time, unless you would still want to maybe speak with the family for future reference, perhaps. Um, but that brings me to the next question. Do you all really need it? Do you feel as though somehow we can have some type of synergy when it comes to funeral service professionals, funeral directors, funeral home owners? How can we work together uh, in our respective areas amongst with each other so that we can help increase, if you will, the doula service?
I said earlier that I did visit with we're in a very rural, small area, so we just have tiny little towns. And I did meet with
Oh,
the people at both
okay,
funeral homes. Introduce myself, give them my card, ask them for information too, because sometimes they'll get somebody that will come in to, they're perfectly healthy, but maybe they
okay,
want to do a pre-planned funeral. They want to pay in advance, they want to set up everything. But that doesn't mean down the road in 2 or 3 or 4 years that they might not develop some type of illness or sickness that they may need, and they're faced with an impending diagnosis that may lead to death. So I think having that relationship, especially in my small community where people know that I'm here to help, and me to help. Sometimes people ask me
yeah,
questions just out of the blue because I'm a nurse, and people ask people all kind of questions. And sometimes, I'll say to them, it's a good idea, to meet with a funeral and go get a packet of
yeah.
information and let them tell you, what to expect and what the costs are going to be and things like that. I don't ever think sharing that information, hurts anybody, at all.
And I like to tag in on that too. In my community, to me, one
Right.
of the things that a doula does is offer resources. That's one of the
Hmm.
things I want to. So, funeral home services are a resource for clients. And
Okay.
so I try to establish a relationship with the
Yes.
funeral homes in my area to be a
Hmm.
resource for the families, to not talk about that to right at death and then you're trying to figure out a funeral home. I talk about that early for them to make arrangements earlier so that those last moments before death, nobody is just like scrounging around trying to find a funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
So, I give them a list of resources. We talk about that. I have a relationship with the funeral homes in my deaf cafes.
Right.
Sometimes some of the local funeral homes, I will have them do a talk during the deaf cafe. And a deaf cafe is where I meet
Yeah.
at different coffee houses
Okay.
and just kind of discuss different aspects of death, different topics related to death for the community to kind of break down that stigma um,
Okay.
about the dying process and about death.
That fear.
Yes, that
Yeah.
fear,
Mm-hmm.
that fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's wonderful. Would you consider coming here? No, I'm just playing. That's a
I
very
sure
good
would.
idea. Having something for the public. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 or 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 hey, Linda, you can send for me. I'll come.
Hey,
I'll
either
come.
way,
I,
you
I
come
look. I
on and
always look for ways
um,
to travel.
it's fun. I try to make it
Mm-hmm.
fun. We have cake and coffee, and we just make it out of a discussion in a group, and it's my way of
Oh,
educating the
okay.
public.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And then you're in Oklahoma, right, Kim?
Yes, ma'am. I am. Yes.
Yeah. So I've been there. I've been there one time, and I plan to come back this year. So I just might look you up because I heard there might be a horse or two I could potentially look at while I'm
Yeah.
down there.
So, I,
uh,
yes, and we are about an hour south of Oklahoma City. And, yes, we do, my husband and I do have a horse ranch. So that's my other job. But you're always welcome to come. Mhm.
Okay, well we'll keep that in mind. I specifically Tulsa, and I was very impressed. So I know that I'm going to be coming back there sometime this year. So
Awesome.
uh, back on with the talk. Sometimes I get sidetracked, so pardon me
All
for that,
good.
ladies.
All good.
um, okay, so in regards to yeah, yeah. Okay, so in regards to the funeral homes and being a resource in that type of way, uh, is there a possibility of contracting? For example, all of the families that you see, this is your go-to funeral establishment or crematory.
I have some funeral homes that I wouldn't say we have a contract. We have well, crematory sometimes they give a discount for some of my clients. Some funeral homes, I try to work it out. Maybe I've been in this area for a long time, so I know a few people. Sometimes they will give discounts, but we don't really have a contract
Okay.
per se. And so I'll tell people that they'll give you this discount or whatever, because some people, at the end of life, some people finances is a big
Right.
thing.
Hmm.
So I have a couple of places that we've worked that
Yeah.
kind of out. Yeah.
And I think just to tag on
Okay.
to what Linda
Kind of like
said is,
promo.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
and just to tag on to what Linda said, about finances. In our area here, we're very rural, and I do see, there are some families that are all still about the traditional funeral service, but then I do see more and more people were doing cremation
Yeah.
because of the cost, really.
Yeah. There are some doulas that are certified to do home funerals.
Hmm.
You have to look up the regulations in your state. But if you
Okay.
have property and you want to do a home funeral service like they did back in the day, that can be arranged, and doulas help you with that arrangement in the home setting. So everybody gathers at the home for the funeral. The person is buried. It has to be laws like they can't
And
be
no.
buried so
Okay.
close to the home and that kind of thing. But you help them with the arrangements of how their funeral would look, how they would want that be in their home setting. And I have just got certified with that. I
Yeah.
haven't done that yet, but I've shadowed a couple of people that have done that and offer that for family members. And, that is, you still need the funeral service sometimes, because some people do not, they may want to have the funeral service at the home, but they don't want to bury there. So you need a contracted funeral home to,
Mhm.
pick up the body and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Everything is done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Keep me posted on that, because that is something that I kind of raised an eyebrow to at one point, because it's not really prevalent here in our city that I know of. And I wouldn't think that it's too prevalent anymore in any U.S. cities, but it could definitely make a comeback, like you were saying.
Mhm.
And you never
In
know how
some rural
many people might
areas,
be interested in doing that, as time progresses.
well,
Uh-huh.
in rural areas, and when
Oh, okay.
people think of finances, that is a lot cheaper. I hate to be
Mhm.
that blunt
Yeah.
about it, but it is. And so there are more doulas doing that kind of thing. Not that it's very, very popular, but it is a new
Mm-hmm.
thing that is happening.
I do some funerals because I am an ordained minister, but it's traditional funerals that I do. I don't do a lot, but if there's a
Okay.
need, if a family, if the family doesn't have an aligned church or an aligned minister, I have done a funeral or two. So some doulas are ordained ministers too that have the ability to
Okay.
do that also.
Like, oh, we are well rounded here. Too bad we're not in the same city. We can open up a whole establishment.
We
Yeah.
could.
And we have everything we need.
That's right. Uh,
Right. But that's okay. We're doing what we do in our respective areas. So that's enough of an impact for me. Um, so my other question was, uh, when it comes to doula, do you all think that, or you might even know already, does that come from a cultural uh, location? Did it like maybe start somewhere else outside of our culture, or is it something that's just here for everyone, or started
you
originated?
know, I'll just kind of speak a little bit to that. So, in our cultural years ago, okay, there were people that were really actually aligned in the families in certain areas that was their job in the family was to take care of somebody that was dying. These were actually roles in our society many years ago that people were, the Mary Jane of the family. She
Okay.
was the person that took care of somebody at the time of death. And then our cultural kind of waxed and waned a little bit, and we got really to the point that we got so removed from talking about death and dying that we kind of sweep it under the rug, and we don't have those conversations, and people are scared to death. They don't talk about it anymore because it was so removed from our culture. So that was kind of my input on that, and
Yeah.
Linda can add to that too if she needs to.
Well, I guess we both agree on that. No, I totally agree with that. I feel like really doula is, it's become more popular, the word per
Hmm.
se, but people have been practicing as doulas and not even knowing it in families. There's always Aunt Sue or somebody that has
Yeah.
taken care of somebody that's sick all through to the dying process to they died. And they provided those services kind of maybe not as officially as we do, but they provided those services of being supportive. And because they knew so and so and so and so had died in the family, they educated and supported the family. So, but now it's just taking all of that knowledge and kind of making it a little bit more modern, and um, and it's uplifting and educating people a little bit more,
Hmm.
but it's pretty much the things that we used to do back in the 30s and 40s when you were in
Hmm.
small towns. There was always somebody around to
Yeah.
help people through those
Yeah.
processes. We've picked that back up, maybe squinched it and made it a little bit
Yeah.
more professional, but it's the same service.
Hmm.
It's like the midwife,
Yeah.
only we're
Oh
just kind
yeah.
of birthing people through the dying
Okay.
process. Yeah.
Hmm.
Even though it's considered the process of death, they're still being birthed into, it's like the new life is being birthed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like a continual thing, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And
You got
And
to have the right head to catch that. Yeah.
yeah, I was just saying, life is that way. It is a
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, we
what they
we're
call it in the
born,
Lion
we
King,
die,
the
we
circle of
live.
life.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I don't know who I was met not too long ago. I said, well, I don't mind. You know, they can take this body and see what next one that I get. I'm not sure that I'll even be conscious of that, but I'm comical as well. So I hope that's okay, ladies.
Yeah, it is
That's
me.
fine. That's
um,
fine.
well, I have one more question here, and then we'll wrap it up this time. And I just want to say I've had a very good time speaking with you, ladies, and we might do this again in the future if that's okay with you. Um,
Sure.
so
Sure.
the last
Absolutely.
for those who are watching, yeah, for those who are watching and listening to us, and those on the saying very interesting, and they might be interested in becoming an end of life doula. What advice or information could you have for them if they were interested in starting this practice as well?
There are several certification processes or programs that are available, online. I think, this is something that you either have a calling for or you don't,
Okay.
first off. Your heart really has to be in it. And I would tell anybody, myself personally, if they're thinking about maybe
Yeah.
venturing into this, I think a really good starting place is to volunteer as a hospice person. Get yourself aligned to some of the hospice agencies in your area
Okay.
where you get a really good look at what happens in caring for people that are dying almost every single day. That's going to tell you right then and there whether you have,
Yeah.
the heart to do this at all. And you
If you
don't
can
have
stomach
to
it.
be
Yeah.
certified. You don't have to be certified. You just have to have a doula
Sure.
heart. That's what I always say to everybody. You just have to have a doula heart. But that's my take on it.
And I do agree with that.
Yeah.
I I do teach through the
Yeah.
University of Vermont, and so we have a doula program there. I do feel like if you've never done anything like this, that at least shadowing a doula in your area, if you can
Mhm.
find one, do search the internet for good programs. 'Cause just
Okay.
if you've never done anything like this, and of course, like Kimberly said, going ahead and volunteering. But when you do all three of those, it just makes you more well rounded, because as a
Mhm.
doula, you will meet all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. And I think the more prepared you are, it just helps you in your practice.
Mhm.
If I didn't have so much on my plate, I must admit this is something that I would definitely uh, raise my eyebrow to. I better not even dare think about adding anything to my plate, but I definitely am interested in the content itself. Which is why we're here. I told
That's
you,
right.
ladies, I had questions, so and we'll go ahead and end here. But like I said, I've had a wonderful time speaking with you, and uh, hopefully we can come together again for another talk, maybe an extension of this talk as well. But before we go, share with me, if you don't mind, how people can find you if they'd like to reach out to you directly via social media or whatever other channel you might have available for them.
Well, I have on Facebook, I have a support group called End of Life Care. those serving those at the end of life care. That's a Facebook. And I also have a website,
Yes.
compassionatecaredoulaservice.com. And I have a Facebook page for my business that's compassionatecare.com. So you can get me at any of those. And the Facebook page, that's really a support group for caregivers that I try to share. Not only me, it's
Okay.
because I am a hospice nurse. It's funeral home services. It's other hospices on my page. It's other caregivers that have been around, and there are nurses and social workers and all kind of people on that page to help caregivers that are really struggling, or if they just need information. That page shares a lot of information.
And that is for people all across the country, correct, Linda?
Yeah, I think now we have over 2,000 followers, and it's people really. I mean, I have
Oh,
some
wow, that's
international
great.
people. Yeah, so it has a lot of people. Yeah, all over.
Good.
Okay. Okay, great, great. Okay. Kimberly?
Yes, ma'am. So I right now I'm just using my regular Facebook page, which is Kimberly Dericio. And then I also have a Facebook page that is linked to Saddle Up
Okay.
Ministries. So I can be reached on either or on
Okay.
Facebook. So I have a separate page that's called Saddle Up Ministry and my personal Facebook page. So I can be reached on either.
Okay, great. And so you heard it here, folks. If you need to contact one of these end of life doulas directly, they have given you their information. Feel free to reach out to them. If you have more questions for us, please put them in the comments of this actual video. I will read them. I'm sure they'll get them as well. If you have questions for us from what you've heard in this talk, we are more than happy to answer those questions. And if the questions are abundant, we just might have to come back. So, of course, that's what I'm shooting for. Closing out again, I am Star Ellis, licensed funeral director in St. Louis, Missouri. If you need low cost cremation service, you can reach me directly at Discount STL Cremation. I am the licensed funeral director there, and I oversee all of the working, the things that we do for the business. I oversee everything there. So I'm the boss lady there, basically. So feel free to reach out to me. My Facebook page, R. Ellis. You can also please go and like our business page. Our business page, Funeral Service Professionals United. And please also go and look into these ladies' pages that they've shared with you as well. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful evening. Look for us again, and we appreciate you listening tonight. Okay. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, ladies.
Thank you.
We will be in
Thank
touch
Bye-bye.
you.
with you as well.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.